Discounting Curves with Fish and Human Subjects by Rachel Mayer. The current study builds upon other experiments that have looked at animals and human subjects to produce a discounting curve. The current study analyzes two populations, fish and humans, to determine the discounting curves. The purpose of this study was to compare the temporal and probability discounting curves of an at-risk and control group, in addition to comparing two concurrent schedules of reinforcement with a fish subject. The subject for the first experiment that will be compared today was one male half-moon beta that was obtained from the local pet store. He was the same fish used in the first experiment, and he was housed in the same aquarium with the same water conditions and the same food provided daily. The fish was housed in the same aquarium that was in a room with controlled light exposure. The aquarium was 34.5 centimeters long by 15.4 centimeters wide by 24.3 centimeters high and contained approximately 7.5 liters of water. It had one filter that was located in the middle back of the aquarium that ran continuously 24 hours a day. There was a removable divider that was never placed in the tank, and 4 LED lights on the hood that were kept on a 12-hour light-dark schedule. The hood contained a door that opened and closed for feeding. Different materials were used from the R2 Fish School training kit throughout the baseline and training sessions. Every time the fish was fed, the beta food was delivered directly from the R2 fish feeding wand into the aquarium. The treats were dispensed the same way. The expansion hoop and 11.43 centimeter post was connected to the adapter during training sessions. The basketball hoop with the suction cup was attached to the wall during training sessions. An iPhone stopwatch was used to time for the delivery of the delayed reinforcer. All 8 sessions were conducted in the same aquarium. To stay true to the 12-hour light-dark cycle, the lights were turned on at 7 p.m. and turned off at 7 a.m. The lights turning on signaled the onset of a training session. The fish was only fed once daily after the training sessions were over. During training sessions, varying amounts of food treats or a combination of both were placed in the cavity section of the wand. Both baseline trials were conducted in the same aquarium by placing the basketball and expansion hoops in the tank and allowing the fish to swim freely throughout the tank. The hoop was facing so the fish could swim straight through, and the basketball hoop was suctioned to the wall so that the fish would have to swim up through it. No reinforcement was given during baseline trials. All sessions lasted 1 minute. All 6 training sessions were conducted in the same aquarium by placing the expansion hoop and the basketball hoop in the tank and allowing the fish to swim through whichever hoop it wanted to swim through. The expansion hoop was positioned so the fish would swim in a straight line through, and the basketball hoop was suctioned to the side of the tank so the fish would have to swim straight up or down. The food was released from the wand when the fish swam through the hoop, but on 2 different schedules. When the fish swam straight through the expansion hoop, an immediate reward of a small amount of treats was released into the water for the fish. When the fish swam up through the basketball hoop, the wand was inserted to the water, but the release of the food was not immediate. The experimenter started a stopwatch on an iPhone and released a much larger amount of food and treats after 5 seconds had passed. Each training trial ended as soon as the fish swam through either hoop or after 3 minutes, whichever came first. During the 2 baseline trials conducted, the fish did not display any identifiable preference for either schedule of reinforcement. 6 training trials were conducted. During the trials, the fish displayed a tendency for the SSR. The fish went through the expansion hoop 4 times and the basketball hoop 2 times. A 0 was recorded each trial the fish did not emit a response. A 1 was recorded each time the fish emitted the behavior reinforced on the SSR schedule, and a 2 was recorded each time the fish emitted the behavior reinforced by the LLR schedule. The results of the present experiment support the findings of the previously mentioned studies. Animals can produce discounting curves. The fish began the experiment not displaying any observable preferences for the reinforcement schedules, but by the end of the training trials, it was swimming through the expansion hoop more times than the basketball hoop, even though both behaviors were already in the fish's repertoire. One limitation of the current study is time. Having more time to run more trials may have given more accurate data. Future studies can build upon the findings from this current study. They can continue to use animals to produce discounting curves. Future experiments can continue to use this species in training sessions because betas are overall low-maintenance fish, making them a good subject for future experiments. 20 humans served as the subject for the second experiment. They ranged in age from 15 years to 57 years. The 20 subjects were divided into two groups, a control group and an at-risk group. The control group consisted of 10 subjects ranging from 17 years to 57 years. The at-risk or experimental group consisted of 10 subjects ranging from 15 years to 28 years. The members of the at-risk group had to have an official diagnosis of attention deficit hyperactivity disorder or ADHD. All subjects had to give verbal consent to participate in the study, and parents of subjects under the age of 18 had to provide written consent for their child to participate. 15 of the 20 trials were conducted in the library at a high school. Any participants that attended or worked at that high school participated in the experiment in the library. The remaining 5 participants completed the trials in the home office of the experimenter. The experimenter used a list on a piece of paper to track the responses of the participants. 4 stacks of note cards were used to give options throughout the experiment. The first note card had $1,000 written on it to stand as the LLR, delayed reward. The second stack of note cards for the 24 immediate rewards, or SSRs, contained numbers ranging from $1,000 to $1. The third stack of note cards for the delayed times contained the following 7 phrases: 1 week, 2 weeks, 1 month, 6 months, 1 year, 3 years, 8 years. The fourth stack of note cards had the following probabilities: 10% chance, 15%, 25%, 50%, 75%, 90%, 100%. After receiving consent from the participant and/or parents, the experiment began. The experimenter would begin each trial by reading instructions that told the participants that they were going to have to answer a series of questions about money, but all money was hypothetical. They would not actually receive any money, but should answer as if they were. The experimenter sat across the table from the participant. The LLR card was placed on the participant's right. The SSR card was placed on the participant's left in descending order. The delay time cards were placed to the right of the LLR card in ascending order. The participant was then asked, would you rather $1,000 right now or $1,000 in 1 week? The experimenter then recorded the participant's response, and the next SSR was revealed. The question was repeated, would you rather $990 right now or $1,000 in 1 week? This process was repeated until the participant chose between each SSR from $1,000 to $1 and the constant LLR at the 1 week delay. Then the entire process was repeated for each of the remaining delays, 2 weeks to 8 years. The indifference point was calculated by recording the last immediate reward or SSR chosen. The procedure was then repeated again, except instead of using delays, probabilities were used. The same instructions were delivered at the onset of Trial 2. The stacks of note cards were displayed the same way as they were in Trial 1. During this trial, the question was, would you rather $1,000 for sure or $1,000 with a 10% chance? After recording the participant's answer, the experimenter revealed the next amount and asked, would you rather $990 for sure or $1,000 with a 10% chance? This was repeated until each amount from $1,000 to $1 was asked at each different probability, from 10% to 100% chance. This is an example of one of the 4 indifference charts created after collecting the data. There was one for the control group and one for the experimenter group for the delays, and one for control and one for the experimental group at each of the probabilities. It shows the indifference point for each participant at each delay or each probability. The results of the study show that the indifference points for delay rewards are higher for the control group than for the at-risk group. These are the graphs showing the probability discounting curves for experiment 2. The results of the present experiment support the findings of the previously mentioned studies. Humans in an at-risk group discount rewards more steeply than those in the control group. They are more likely to choose to receive the smaller amount of money now rather than wait a given amount of time for the larger amount of money. The at-risk group is more likely to choose the higher amount of money even if the probability of actually receiving the money is low. One limitation of the current study is the age of the participants. The ages of the participants ranged from 15 to 57 years. If the range was smaller, this may have produced different results. Another limitation may have been the fact that some participants in the at-risk group were medicated for ADHD while others were not. The criterion was just if the participants had a diagnosis of ADHD, not whether they were medicated. This could have affected the results. Future studies can build upon the findings from the current study. They can continue to use human subjects to produce discounting curves. Many studies have been done with addicts, gamblers, and people with developmental disabilities, but subjects with ADHD can also be used to produce discounting curves. This is a video of one of the two baseline trials conducted in Experiment 1. These are videos showing the fish being trained to respond to the hoops in the tank. Here are 3 videos of the final responding sessions. The first 2 videos show the fish emitting the behavior that's reinforced on the LLR schedule, and the third video on the right shows the fish emitting the behavior that is reinforced on the SSR schedule.
Do something now? Yeah, you can just